David here with Figboot on Pens, back again with another fountain pen review. Just a little note at the top of today's video, you might have noticed that on my YouTube channel and some of my other social media that I have a new logo for the channel. I thought it was about time to get something a little bit more polished. I utilized the services of Matthew Morse, who goes by Hey Matthew online. Among other things, he's a professional graphic designer. It's a fun process coming up with a logo. I had some initial thoughts about what I was looking for, and Matthew provided me with a number of choices in varying styles. We had some back and forth and made a few tweaks and adjustments, and ended up with something that I'm really pleased with. The only thing that's really missing is a graphical representation of pens within the logo. We tried a couple of things, but I felt most things came across a little cliche, and I didn't want to do something that had been done many times before. It almost kind of looks like I could have a sports blog. But yes, I'm pleased with the result. I think it looks really clean. And if you should have the need of a professional graphic designer, I would highly recommend Matthew. It was well worth the expense to outsource this to a professional. I'll put a link to his site in the notes below. Now, in regard to a pen, today I have for you a limited edition offering from Montegrappa, only available through Goldspot Pens. And that pen is the Montegrappa Venetia in Turquoise. What I'm going to do today is go over the parts and features of this pen. I'm going to talk about what I care for and what I don't care for about it. I'll show some measurements, size comparisons, and provide a writing sample. Thanks go out to the good folks at Goldspot Pens for providing this pen on loan for review. Montegrappa is a brand that's becoming more representative in my collection. They have been coming out with some really solid offerings. And the pen I have for you today, in my opinion, certainly falls under that category. It arrives in this standard Montegrappa box. They've been using this box for a while, but I think it looks really sharp. I kind of like the M logo that they changed to. I also like the boxes that flip open on the side like that. It kind of makes getting the actual box out of here easier. And then we have the actual box. It flips open, and inside we have a couple of standard international cartridges. We have a use and care guide, and we have a pen. This is the Montegrappa Venetia in Turquoise. This is a limited edition of 100 pens, only available, like I said, through Goldspot Pens. The pen is made from what I feel is a very stunning celluloid, and the trim is gold-plated brass. I really like that this just isn't a flat material. To begin with, it has a bit of a twist to it, which adds an additional element of movement and flow to the material. On top of that, this celluloid has a richness and depth to it with a considerable amount of chatoyance as well. Here's a pic from the Goldspot site that gives you a really nice 360-degree view of this material. I really like this material. And I think that it's that twist that really does it for me. It just adds that extra element that really brings this material to life. Let's take a look at the top of the cap. It comes to a rounded off point. It's not sharp at all. This transitions into the standard Montegrappa clip, which can be found on many of their models. It's slightly bowed and has a really nice wheel. I find the clip to be functional and can be used in materials of varying thicknesses. The cap angles up for almost its entirety, straightening out only at the last ½ inch or so. There we have a gold-plated band. On one side, it's engraved with the company name, and on the other side, it says Italy and the limited edition number of this pen. As I mentioned previously, this is a numbered limited edition of 100. There is a medium-sized rounded step down to the barrel, which then tapers down at an even rate of decline until you reach the end, where similar to the top of the cap, it comes to a rounded off point. The cap twists off with 1 1/4 rotations, and underneath we have this number 6 18-karat gold nib. The nib is available in extra fine, fine, medium, broad, as well as a 1.1 stub, which is what I have here on this particular pen. I really like the engraved patterning on Montegrappa's nibs. I just think that the octagonal shape looks really sharp. And here's a look at the ebonite feed. The section begins with a slight flare and then angles up slightly until you reach the cap threads. After the threads, there is a straight portion before an angled step up to the remainder of the barrel. This elongated section works really well for me. The threads are not sharp or uncomfortable if your grip should rest on them, and I find this section to be accommodating to a variety of grip styles and locations. I find it to be comfortable in the hand. It's just very sleek as well. One thing I did notice in regard to this material and alignment, from a manufacturing standpoint, it's very difficult to align the material between the section and the barrel. You're talking about two separate pieces being manufactured separately and then assembled. How the material will align is more kind of happenstance rather than intentional. In most cases, it will vary from pen to pen. In the case of this particular pen and this particular section, the material is essentially turned 180 degrees. So the twist on this celluloid is in one direction on the barrel and then the opposite direction on the section. I will say that it took me a while to notice this. It's not something that really bugs me, but in a perfect world, it would be really nice to have everything aligned with the twists going in the same direction. This pen is plenty long enough to use unposted. The cap does post. It does not post that securely unless you really put it on there with some intent. And once you get it on there, it does have a bit of the mushroom look that I'm not especially fond of, so I prefer to use this pen unposted. This is a cartridge converter pen. It accepts standard international cartridges, 2 of which were provided, as I showed you, and a converter is provided as well. With the metal used in the section housing as well as the interior of the barrel, eyedropping this pen would not be recommended. As I had mentioned, this is a limited edition offering only available through Goldspot, where it retails for $895. I've tested a couple of versions of this style of pen from Montegrappa, and I really care for it. And this turquoise celluloid is something very special. Okay. Thanks go out again to Goldspot for providing this pen on loan for review. Now it is time for some measurements, size comparisons, and a writing sample with this 1.1 stub nib. Okay, here we go with some size comparisons for the Montegrappa Venetia Turquoise. I just really think that in the light, you could really see how this material comes to life. It's just really cool. A lot of chatoyance in there, and I just like material like that that just kind of has a little extra life to it. But in regard to some size comparisons, in regard to a couple of other Montegrappas, here it is with a pen that I recently reviewed, which was a Montegrappa Elmo Raspberry Ripple. And then here is the doubly named Montegrappa. And then finally, I have another version of the Venetia pen, and forgive me, I forgot the exact name of this. This is another retailer exclusive that I had purchased at the San Francisco show, and I need to review this one as well. This one actually has a stainless steel nib, so this is a lesser expensive model, but I think it looks nice as well. In regard to some other blue pens, here it is with a Lamy All-Star. And then here it is with a Omas Ogiva Cocktail. And then finally, a pen that I really like, and everyone that I know that has gotten one has really enjoyed it. And this is a Wancher, and this is called the Japan Blue. It's just a hammered metal. I think it's a really cool look. It has a lot of sailor parts, so essentially it's a Sailor Pro Gear with some hammered metal. It's a really cool combination. In regard to some uncapped comparisons, here it is with the All-Star, here it is with the Montegrappa, and then here it is with the Elmo. Here we go with the writing sample for the Montegrappa. Venetia Turquoise. And this is a 1.1 stub. And the ink that I'm using today is Diamine Skull and Roses. This is what the ink looks like. It's a really nice blue, but then it has some nice purplish sheen to it. And especially with like a 1.1 that lays down a lot of ink, it really looks nice. And there's just a lot of shading and sheening to it. This is what it looks like in comparison to the Krishna S series, the Pakaza. And then here it is with Diamine Bloody Brexit, all of which are really nice sheening blues. This is what Diamine's 80 milliliter bottles look like. This is part of their rock and roll collection, which was available through some German retailers. I think you can get them on Amazon as well, but that's where they started. They have a whole rock and roll series, which are really, really cool. And the inks are nice as well. And here we go with the rest of the writing sample. I will say that this 1.1 nib is very crisp. It's not super forgiving, so I'm having to be very intentional to keep it straight on the page. If you angle a little bit, then you're not going to get a lot of coverage there, and you're not going to be able to keep the ink flow. So and see, just by doing that, it kind of ran out. You're not going to get a lot of line variation. If you go a little bit too quick, it can dry out. But you can see that you get some solid lines going up and down, and then much thinner lines going back and forth. In regard to the ink flow, it is decently heavy. In regard to reverse writing, these nibs really aren't made for reverse writing, but it gets the job done. It is very scratchy in that regard. And then in regard to some fast writing, if you keep the orientation right, then you're not going to have any issues at all. And actually, I think it adds a nice bit of flair to your writing. So there we go with the Montegrappa Venetia Turquoise. I wanted to give you another look at that really cool material. Thanks again. Go out to Goldspot Pens for providing this pen for review on loan. I will put a link in the notes below to where you can find this on their site. Until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.